Good day! As for the continuation of remedial instruction in speaking, we will discuss the techniques and practice materials to be utilized in speaking classes and principles in teaching pronunciation, especially as future English language teachers. Here are techniques and practice materials as cited in Marcia, Brinton, and Goodwin in 1996 in teaching pronunciation that has been used traditionally and utilized in speaking classes. We must take note of this, for we will need it especially when we start teaching as language teachers. Number 1. Listen and imitate. Learners listen to a model provided by the teacher and then repeat or imitate it. Number 2. Phonetic training. Articulatory descriptions, articulatory diagrams, and a phonetic alphabet are used. Number 3. Minimal pair drills. This provides practice on problematic sounds in the target language through listening discrimination and spoken practice. Drills begin with word level, then move to sentence level. Number 4. Contextualized minimal pairs. The teacher establishes the setting or context, then key vocabulary is presented. Students provide a meaningful response to sentence stem. Number 5. Visual aids. These materials are used to cue the production of focus sounds. Number 6. Tongue twisters. Number 7. Developmental approximation drills. Second language speakers take after the steps that English-speaking children follow in acquiring certain sounds. Number 8. Practice vowel shifts and stress shifts related to affixation. For example, for the vowel shift mime, long I, mimic, short I. And in the sentence context, street mimes often mimic the gestures of passerby. Another example, for the stress shift, photograph and photography. And for sentence context, I can tell from these photographs that you are very good at photography. Number 9. Reading aloud recitation. Passages and scripts are used to practice and then read aloud, focusing on stress, timing, and intonation. Number 10. Recording of learners' production. Playback allows for giving feedback and self-evaluation. Next to discuss is the principle in teaching pronunciation. Principle number 1. Being pattern seekers helps and hinders. Patterns, systems, and frameworks are a unique set of acoustic dynamics that radiate from vowels and consonants to intonation and public speaking. No matter how advanced our students might be, vowels and consonants must always be reviewed. In presenting ideas, there is an organized plot that is in a logical framework and offers tools that can explore and use in our own learnings that may help us build self-sufficiency and efficacy into such principles. As for the sample of the framework, speaking vowels and consonants must be studied, and then the syllables, the words, the phrases, the sentences where we have and make such ideas to complete to express and be understood, in which 5 acoustic dynamics has been focused on as it moves to syllables, to words, to phrases, to sentences. It is the voicing, duration, clarity, energy, and pitch. Not all languages use the same dynamics for stress and accentuation. These are the ones English speakers use to create and control how to sound when speaking. The fundamental principle to teach a pronunciation that we must all be aware of, especially as English teachers, are how to speak in a pause units, have prominence, awareness of the tone, use protactic, and project your voice, which is essential concept. Patterns could help us in many ways, and they could also help us when we speak. Still, some patterns that people have miscalculated to use become a hindrance and make the speakers have difficulties talking or when making conversations with others. It is due to always depending on the patterns and not to the speaker's capability to speak freely, which we must be aware of in speaking as future educators. Principle number 2. This equilibrium is a good thing. We have a number of restrictions when it comes to how we think and learn, which makes it hard to change. Some things to keep in mind about how we think is that we have built-in blind spots based on our own ideas and beliefs. In that case, we should always look for ways to show how our students and we think and learn. Some people don't pay attention to unique information and only pay attention to things that agree with their ideas. And this sample has to do with what I've watched on YouTube. The title is The Effectiveness of Science. In that video, I learned how such a paper was made, like on students' exam. The pretest had clear, concise, and easy to understand questions in the sample that made students more confident and better at taking the post test. As educators, we need to know that our students have this problem of noticing or seeing only what fits in with their existing frameworks, so we need to do things differently. Some of our students might have been studying English for a long time, so we must use surprise and disequilibrium as teaching tools to help them start new neural connections and construct additional mental frameworks. It is much easier to improve speaking when we do not always depend on or follow our patterns. It is better to explore and learn new strategies to develop such abilities in life. Principle number 3. Speaking is unconscious and physical. Speaking is important, but don't forget that speaking, and therefore pronunciation, is both unconscious and physical. This means that even if you get all the surprises, explanations, and worksheets in the world, you may not be able to make your voice sound different because of your unconscious vocalization habits from your first language. Many muscles work together when we speak, and they work together automatically, unconsciously in our first language too. It is the same case with the students that we will be handling. The way we speak is both physical and unconscious. As future pronunciation teachers, we must teach English sounds physically and unconsciously so that our students can learn, unlearn, or relearn them. We'll talk about mimicking and listening to learn in the first part of this lesson. And here in the second part, and in this principle, we must do this as well. Listen and repeat isn't always enough to make a long-term change in our students' sound. But there are two ways to teach based on the physicality of speaking and what we know about physical training. The first strategy is reps, which means that we have to keep doing something to get better at it. Repeat and repeat and repeat no matter what it is. The same is true for new sounds and ways of saying things too. In the first strategy, we work out to build up our muscles using reps. In the second strategy, we work out to build our strength. If we want to get better at something, we work with a friend, coach, trainer, or anyone to be with us to be guided and be motivated or inspired through having company, like how students and teachers work. To be sure that it works, we can try it out and see if we can make specific movements that speed up and improve the learning of English sounds. Using these two ideas, the repetitive movements and accompaniment will help our students change or learn their pronunciation. And we can teach rhythms the same way. Principle number 4. Awareness leads to consciousness, which leads to change. The more you know, the better. Let's make our students fully aware of a new English pronunciation and sound system as we teach. Our job is to get them to the point where they can explore, experiment with, manipulate, and finally control sounds on their own. There is a chance that the way you speak will change for good in the long run. When we want them to pay attention, we can do everything we can, like make sure they practice hearing and recognizing sounds. Also, use visual charts and interactive websites to imagine or visualize the sound's physical movements to help them remember the articulation movements and use of all their senses to help our students, to help them learn how to say them. When our students are able to hear the words and understand the strategies and tools we've given them to use, they'll be able to take charge of their own learning. Concerning the third principle, we must not forget to coach them in training, meaning guiding their learning. If you don't keep up with the new skills you learn, you'll go back to old bad articulation habits. This brings us to the last and fifth principle, number 5. Practice makes perfect. There is no substitute for repetition and practice, which is especially true for learning pronunciation. Work out our tongues to forget how they used to move. If we want our new knowledge and control of vowels to stay, we need to use them often and get feedback. After all, this is physical training. If you stop going to the gym, what would happen to build up muscles and strengthen the body you have? If you stop meeting up with your friend to exercise, what happens? Most people go back to their old ways. We have such principles to guide us, and it is all connected. Having a trainer to help us learn new skills is what teachers do to students. Meeting trainers or coaches even once a week is inspiring and very motivating, where students must do to teachers like us. It is a form of consultation where they can state and seek what to learn and for us to give what they need to know. We must be our students' trainers and keep them working on those sounds even after we've moved on to other things in class. If we taught our students a system, taught them specific skill sets, and gave targeted homework practice, our students would be able to help themselves. Our students will have very specific methods to perform, and all they'll need in the future is occasional feedback on their performance to tell them if they're slipping back to old ways or not. Remember that teaching pronunciation is both an art and a science. We must take these principles and turn them into an art form, especially in teaching speaking. The use of accuracy-based activities. Accuracy precedes fluency. Form-focused activities prepare our students for communicative tasks. These activities have a high degree of control and focus on specific language components. Hedge 2000 describes making accuracy-based activities meaningful to strike a balance. Number 1. Contextualized practice. This aims to establish the link between form and function. The activity should highlight the situation where the form is commonly used. Number 2. Personalizing language. The personalized practice encourages learners to express their ideas, feelings, and opinions. These activities help learners to use language in interpersonal interactions. A variety of gambits or useful expressions should be provided. Number 3. Building awareness of the social use of language. This involves understanding social conventions in interaction. Communication strategies are directly taught and practiced through contextualized activities. And number 4, building confidence. The key is to create a positive climate in the classroom where learners are encouraged to take risks and engage in the activities. And lastly, talking to second language learners in the beginning level, Cary 1997 suggests that teachers must make speech modifications for instructional support when teaching second language learners. And as future teachers, here's what we need to do. Speak at standard speed. This means providing more and slightly longer pauses to give students more time to make sense of the utterances. Use more gestures, movements, and facial expressions. This emphasizes words and give learners extra clues as they search for meaning. Be careful with fused forms. Language compressions or reduced forms can be difficult for learners. Use these forms without overusing or eliminating them altogether. Use shorter, simpler sentences. Use specific names instead of pronouns. As generalization, The goal of speaking instruction is to improve students' command of spoken English to be easily understood by others, not to sound like native speakers. In other words, teachers and students can reduce the stress and boredom often associated with speech problems by focusing on improving students' use of the English language. After all, mastering English pronunciation isn't just about learning sounds or words. Instead, it involves learning and practicing English following a speaker's thoughts. Without correct pronunciation, the words you know won't be as effective when you talk. The best thing you can do is learn a few words and pronounce them well rather than a lot of words and pronounce them poorly. Bad pronunciation can cause people to misunderstand each other. This can lead to mistakes that may cause mishaps or other dangers. So, we must learn and teach the proper speaking techniques and follow the principles that have been discussed, which highlight the interconnectedness of various aspects of English speech. The remedies that address specific speaking elements within a larger scheme that uses all these features to help students develop fluency and accuracy in English were reviewed as well. And that sums up the lesson for remedial instruction in speaking. Thank you for listening. God bless.